Hey everyone, Coach Carly coming at you on this gorgeous sunny Friday afternoon. I'm going to take you on a bushwalk today. So last time I took you on a beach walk, today we are going on a bushwalk. So we'll be watching out for all the critters that might join me. So I've listened to some really wicked podcasts this week. I listened to a couple that were presented by Dr. Martin Seligman. And Dr. Seligman or Professor Seligman, I think he is a pretty eminent psychologist. He's been in the field for a really long time. Back when I was studying my degree in psychology and my master's in forensic psych, I came across his work a lot because he kind of discovered learned helplessness in the rat studies that he did and how he translated that to people with depression. He also is known as the father of positive psychology. He wrote, I think, 5 editions now, or five editions of a book called Abnormal Psychology, which was one of my textbooks when I was studying psych. And it was actually my favourite textbook. Hey Tina, how you going? So I'm talking about Professor Seligman, who is an eminent psychologist. So he discovered learned helplessness, did a lot of research studies around that. He is now the father of positive psychology, right? So he was explaining in this podcast that I listened to this week. There's a podcast called All in the Mind. I'll actually post the link in the comments underneath this live video after the live. So he talked about how he got into positive psychology. So as a coach, positive psychology is definitely my thing. He was talking about how, as a psychologist, having written 5 editions of Abnormal Psychology, he realised that in 50 years of Western medicine, looking into the the pathology of the human species, the human condition, things like depression, anxiety. He writes about all kinds of different disorders in abnormal psychology, what leads to them, what treatments there are. And he realised that in 50 years, not much has really changed in the field of psychology in terms of pathology. So he noticed that against a backdrop of 40% improvement with a placebo drug, there's a 60% improvement with medicinal drugs, Western medicine drugs. And he realised that there really hasn't been such a huge improvement in that period of time, that 50-year period of time. And he thought, why are all psychologists dedicated to finding out about what makes people disordered? Why is the field of psychology only looking at pathologising people and wondering how to get people out of disorders? So positive psychology was born because he decided to do a bit of a landmark thing where he was looking at what made people happy. Because he realised that, we have evolved so much as a species. We've got all these amazing things to be grateful for, and yet we're probably we're no better off in terms of how we feel mentally. I'm going to take you up this massive sand dune. So excuse me, huffing and puffing. He really he thought maybe we're approaching it the wrong way. Maybe we should actually look at what makes people happy, which is pretty cool. So he embarked on that kind of study. And what he's been doing is going into schools and teaching kids about optimism, because through his studies, he realised that the people that were the happiest are not necessarily people that are the most fortunate, not necessarily the most wealthy people, but they're people who have a greater sense of optimism. They have a greater sense of hope for the future, that even when things are not working out the way that they want them to, that they are optimistic about the future and resilient. So hands up for resilience. So what he decided to do was to go into schools and teach people, or teach kids. He did this in a school in Australia, in Geelong. He decided to teach kids skills, I suppose, that led to an increase in their sense of optimism about the future. And and also skills and resilience, because these are all skills that are taught, aren't they? And when he did this, he kind of embarked on a bit of a research study, and teaching these kids these skills over time, he then tracked a 50% reduction in substance misuse over the course of however many years, and he also tracked a 50% reduction in depression, which is pretty amazing. So he's an American professor, and he was at some conference, and he's a pretty eminent psychologist, and he was asked by I forget who the name was, but he was asked by someone who is pretty high up in the ranks of the army in the States. He was asked what led to people having PTSD, and it kind of they entered into this whole conversation around building resilience, and how it's not that people who don't have PTSD don't undergo the same horrific terrors that other people in the war do, or other people in the army do, but it's that they have a greater capacity for resilience. So if we can teach our kids, and even ourselves, skills in being more resilient, so building a resilience toolkit, is that better? No. So building a resilience toolkit for ourselves, which includes things like self-care, positive self-talk, so knowing that even when the chips are down, that things will be okay. Building a greater sense of optimism and hope for the future is a key skill that we can teach our kids. You know, another thing that he said in this podcast, and also in another podcast I was listening to this week on personality disorders, they were talking about how we have a greater number of people who are now very narcissistic. And I know for myself, and also from talking to a lot of my coaching clients, that the world is full of narcissists, people who are just out for themselves. And the thing is that we're breeding more narcissists, because there's plenty of parents out there who won't let their kids be told off at school. They have a real issue with there being prizes for kids who win races and that kind of thing, or they have a real problem with their kids being encouraged to do better. Hey Willie, how you doing? So Dr. Seligman, or Professor Seligman, has linked the increase in personality disorders, especially narcissism, with a reduction in kids being raised with optimism and resilience skills. So Tina and Willie on the live, I'd love to know what optimism and resilience means for you. I know you're both tough, resilient chicks, but also gorgeous, soulful, loving ones at the same time. What's in your resilience toolkit? What are we teaching our kids now about what it means to be resilient? Because these are such important skills for our kids to know, and to be able to pass on to their kids. The last thing we want to do is raise narcissistic children. When I wear my hat as corrections officer, I see lots of narcissistic people around, and we have an ability to breed more of that, or help people to be more resilient, more optimistic about the future, more caring towards other people. So I'd love to know from you, what's in your resilience toolkit? In which ways are you optimistic? What helps you to maintain that sense of optimism? When you've been through tough times, what are the kind of skills or traits that have gotten you through? What kind of tools and techniques have you implemented that have really helped you through that, helped you through tough times to build your resilience toolkit? So humour, Tina, that's a huge one. I mean, it definitely helps to maintain a sense of humour and to have fun as well, because even when life is really serious, we can always find those funny moments. We can always allow ourselves to have fun. And I've definitely been guilty of being a bit too serious sometimes, and that's something that has led to me feeling burnt out in the past. So a sense of humour definitely helps. And actually I think I was listening or reading an article the other day, I think I shared it on my page, where I think the title says something like, one day we'll laugh about this. It doesn't matter what you're going through, one day it will be something that you'll look back on and kind of have a chuckle, because it actually isn't as hard when you look back on it as it felt when you were going through it at the time. And usually with hindsight, you look back and you know why it happened, or you can think about all the amazing growth opportunities that you got from going through that scenario at the time. I don't regret anything that's happened in my life, even when it was really, really awful at the time. So for me, in my resilience toolkit, going out for walks in nature is amazing, especially down to the beach. Making sure I take care of myself, even when I'm busy looking after other people, I have to give myself that nourishment, that opportunity to have a rest, the opportunity to say no to people when I know it's not the right thing for me to do, or to really set those personal boundaries. So it really took me many years to stop self-doubting myself when I knew I was right. So for me, stay strong and be true to yourself, absolutely. Yeah, you really do. Being authentic is so important. Knowing what feels good, what feels light versus what feels heavy and not right for you to do. Really tapping into your intuition and your gut feeling. Which, when you're going through challenges, can be difficult to know, difficult to tap into your clarity and intuition. But, it's about quietening the mind and taking time out for yourself, for meditation, for relaxation, to really top up your energy levels, I suppose. I love emotional freedom techniques, so tapping. I love that as a resilience tool. Getting enough rest is really important, making sure I feed myself with the right nutrition, drink enough water, not too much wine when life is stressful. It can be tempting to, but I know that doesn't necessarily help in the long run. Hanging out with gorgeous friends who lift me up is a big kind of tick in the toolbox. Hanging out with my puppies and getting lots of love and cuddles from my family. Talking to people when I need to, not trying to bottle everything in, but really knowing when it's okay to ask for help is a big deal, and something that I notice leads to a lot of people's downfall, I think, is trying to stay strong. And I hear a lot of people say, oh, just got to push on through it, or just got to toughen up, princess, and just put your big girl's pants on. But that's all well and good, but when you're a heap on the floor needing to be scraped up, it's not going to feel good then. So just talk to people, find someone who will be your cheerleader, do a brain dump, even onto paper if you need to. That's a great way of doing it as well. So yeah, that was a bit of a brain dump today about some cool podcasts that I listened to. I will put the links in the comments here when I finish my walk, and yeah, feel free to have a listen to them, because they're really, really good ones. Very thought-provoking and really kind of get you thinking about, how would the world be if all of us had a greater sense of optimism, if all of us focused on building our resilience toolkit. I wouldn't see probably half the cases that I see at work coming through the doors in corrections if everyone knew how to be resilient and had a greater sense of self-esteem and optimism. So yeah, stay strong, everyone. Enjoy your weekend. Focus on building your resilience toolkit, and look forward to the future with hope and optimism. Thanks for joining me on my walk. Lots of love to you.